Hey, what's going on, guys? I'd like to thank all of you not only for watching my videos and for subscribing to the Code Monkey Kings channel, but rather for that's kind of sort of interaction that you bring me in return. Because this channel wouldn't probably make much sense without interacting with you guys. Because first of all, you're providing real tones of content that I can make using your requests and answering your questions in particular, and also helping each other is very important thing, because the more we do it, the better we become as professionals. And it's not about the laws of programming or marketing, it's more like the laws of the life in general. So it's really kind of very important. So in order to proceed further on, obviously you need to remain a human being and helping others, because that's probably one of the most important things in the life ever, well, at least in my own opinion. So this is a bit unplanned video, and I've entitled this selling data versus selling code, or web scraping code. And I had in mind, I had some thoughts in mind, and I wanted to make this kind of sort of video before as well. But after receiving, and first I received, let me just make this window slightly bit less here. So first I received a commentary on YouTube from one of my new subscribers, Jabarani Jim. If you're watching this, thanks for subscribing, thanks for commenting, and thanks for mailing me to the Gmail. So I actually asked him to mail me, because it happens quite often that YouTube either doesn't notify, or I just missing some new commentaries below the video. So I'm sorry guys if I didn't respond to some of you. So if you really want if you want the 100% response back, please consider mailing me to freesoft.for.people@gmail.com. It's obviously available over here within about section of the channel, just below the description, your email address, and you got it. So it's not a big deal. And when I actually read the request from this guy, I was really happy, because this is exactly the same this is exactly the same kind of outputs that I was supposed to get basically in return. That's exactly the goal I'm trying to achieve within this channel. So I'm trying to motivate you guys to start freelancing on your own selves, and learn Python and web scraping, and more like web scraping rather than Python basically, and actually go in your own ways and stop being dependent on what Dr. Pi is calling business bullshit. Okay, so let me just read this. Sir, you asked me to email to you. Yeah, I did. I'm from Bangladesh, a very poor country. What I must say, I'm from Ukraine. It's maybe not that poor as Bangladesh, but who knows? Maybe I guess the third world countries are literally all about being the same, basically. So it's not a bad thing at all. Being from a very poor country doesn't mean literally anything. It's all about what person and what professional you are. And if you have a computer, that's literally enough. If you have internet and YouTube and just the bare free content is enough to master, say, web scraping from scratch and start making money. And that's exactly the reason, that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm running this channel. Because obviously, for those of you who has money to buy some Udemy courses, it's not a big deal. You can do that, go for that, and I appreciate that as well. But not my Udemy courses. I don't have ones. I'm doing all my educational content absolutely for free, and this would remain free forever, because when you're a programmer, you're making money via delivering the good job to your clients, and YouTube and all this kind of educational stuff is always free, because it's about to share your experience, your knowledge, and not trying to get some money back, but instead it's a willing to give something back to the community that has grown you, and that's very important stuff as well. Because again, like if you want to proceed as a human being, as a professional, it's really important to give away something, and only then you can just go further. If you've seen movie Interstellar by Christopher Nolan, there was a nice phrase regarding the third Newton's principle, like in order to, it's not how it's claimed, but it's some variation, but still it's really cool. Like you need to give something back to proceed further on. So it was something regarding the gravity, I guess. So they needed to give away the part of their spaceship or something, just in order to survive and go on. That I don't really remember the plot exactly. That's really complicated, like every Christopher Nolan's film, but still. That's quite inspiring, at least for me personally, and it really correlates with the Taoist Chinese old tradition, which I'm a follower of, basically. So, I'm your new sap. I got motivated from your videos, and like this phrase, guys, it's the most important for me. What I'm trying to do here is actually I'm trying to motivate you, because I didn't learn from Udemy courses, I didn't learn from colleges, whatever. I didn't spend a single dollar to get the knowledge that I'm sharing with you now. So everything I know, everything I got is actually I got either from YouTube or from the books, or in Ukraine you don't need to buy electronic books. You can just grab it and that's it. Well, not everybody, not every country allows that, but still, but even not really much about the books. Well, if we would be talking regarding the skills that actually started bringing me some money, so I started with web development, and my first $500 I made after watching 2 1-hour videos of Traversy Media. So Brad Traversy is a great guy who handles who is running Traversy Media channel regarding web technologies, which is absolutely fantastic, and I'm trying to follow his patterns at some point. Well, at least I think so. Okay, so I just want to claim that in order to actually start making some income, I'm not telling about big money, but at least some little income, it's literally enough to bear on those knowledge that you can get absolutely for free from YouTube. And again, like what I'm trying to do here, I'm trying to deliver exactly the knowledge that would actually help you to start getting that income. Like not starting like from the very roots, or like first they invented computers and then so on and so on. So it's more like applied programming. So what kind of skills in particular you need to have in order to actually start working on the real world projects for your clients, so you start getting your client base and things like that. So if I got motivated somebody, at least somebody, this is already really nice, and I want to thank all of you guys who actually is getting motivated by watching Code Against videos. So thanks a lot. I learned Python a bit from YouTube, and this is again, like I consider this to be absolutely fantastic, because it's, well, obviously you need to find some appropriate source to learn Python from, and well, I personally I've seen pretty nice YouTube tutorials and crash courses on Python, like Python in 15 minutes and things like that, from Derek Bennis. I'm not sure who exactly. Yeah, probably that was the Derek Bennis, and a nice YouTuber as well, who makes those brilliant programming languages, programming language in 15 minutes crash courses, which is absolutely fantastic. And here we get into the point. Basically, I don't know what client needs. Like Fiverr freelancers selling, like they will scrape 10,000 data. Well, I guess this is more like 10,000 data entries, not the datas, because data is kind of can be in plural, I guess. Well, Dr. Pi, can data be used in plural? Native English speaker, tell me, man. Okay, So show me the path, sir, please. Well, this is a little bit too much. I'm not I'm not a fucking mentor to show the path. To show the path. Yeah, I'm not a Buddha to, to show the path. I can only share my experience. What I have to learn in order to take clients. Thank you. And this is the most decent question so far, I guess. So okay, we just try to get this back slightly. So at least until I'll be talking. So let's start from the very beginning, basically. So in order to start getting some clients, you need something to offer them, so they would pay you in return. So that's what is known in English language as skills. So they call it skills. So skills is some sort of a rapper that can rap your knowledge, your experience, and your ability to produce some sort of a product that would solve somebody's particular needs into one tight ability. Yeah, into one tight ability that allows the client to get the service in return to the needs that he wants to get, and to make sure that this service would actually fit his needs. So this is what skills are, basically. And now I just want to get to the point regarding selling data versus selling code. So if we're talking about web scraping in general, then and let's say about Fiverr in particular, so there are two big niches on the market, and the first one is you can sell data, and the second one, you can sell your code that allows your client to scrape some data. So basically all the web scraping is all about selling data, but it's just a matter of how exactly you are solving that task in particular. So so let's start regarding the pricings. So if you're selling data, that obviously would be far less compared if you're selling your code, because code allows your client to be independent from you completely. So he pays for the scraper once, and then he gets data lifelong time. So obviously if your scraper doesn't crash and things like that, so things like supporting the scrapers is also a good niche. It's at some point that's some of the part of what am I doing on my daily jobs regarding web scraping. So it's quite okay when when some old client mails you like, man, I got a scraper crash, could you please have a look? And that's the case when I'm always doing that. I'm fixing the scraper, I'm not taking any money, because when client pays you initially, the price already includes the lifetime support, because for me personally, getting a good relationship with the client is far more important compared to getting paid. Maybe that's the reason why I'm not getting paid that much as maybe I wanted to, or something, but still I believe that the human relationships are far more important compared to the money, because money would go away, and when you would be dying, the only thing that will remain is how did you interact with the people in your life, and that's kind of quite pretty tricky part to consider and to bear in mind during lifetime. Okay, so let's drop the philosophy here, it's not the point, basically. So now we'll try to break down both the data selling and web scraper creation into more kind of small parts, and to go through all of those parts, basically. So let's first consider data selling. So if you're selling data, that means that the deliverable you're getting paid for is either the CSV file or JSON file or maybe XML file. So some sort of a file that contains entries within itself. So either a table or tree-like data structure, doesn't really matter that much. The point is every line, every entry, every kind of element, well, basically every entry every row within the table costs, well, say, I don't know, like 1 cent or something. So you're getting billed by entries, and that's kind of tradition on Fiverr, at least what I've seen there. So like client like sellers used to say like $5 per, I don't know, maybe 100 entries, and then if you want the 1,000 entries, you can calculate respectively the price and so on. So and that's probably the most low cost payments that are available in this sort of a niche. And but here is another little trick, that in order to sell data you don't even need to have a programming skills, believe it or not. And I have a video introducing the web scraper Chrome extension that is available on the site webscraper.io. Let me just quickly show you that. Oh, sorry guys, got a phone call, hold on a sec. Okay guys, sorry for being distracted. So this is called webscraper.io, which by the way, it's the most viewed video on my channel regards this topic in particular. So here you just have this kind of learn video tutorials, and what this extension, Chrome extension, literally allows you to do, it allows you to actually scrape the data from websites visually. So let me just briefly go through this just to show you.
Hi, in this video I'm going to show a quick demo how, using the web scraper, you can scrape a simple e-commerce site. Let's start by looking at the site. The site has a 2-level navigation.
So I will skip slightly, so just to avoid getting a copyright strike.
Let's call this sitemap e-commerce.
So he creates the sitemap, and then he will start actually to selecting the elements visually. Let me just
see how the site is built.
Okay.
By clicking select button.
Okay. It's a really nice tutorial. Very
Similarly,
very simple.
like the category link selector.
Okay. Just want to show you the end result here. So what he will get in the very end, basically, eventually. Okay, so here is the data
also,
preview.
You should go to other product pages to check whether the selectors work as expected there. After creating selectors, you can open. As you can see, Web Scraper launched a pop-up window in which it is loading URLs to extract data.
Okay.
While to export the data, I'm going to open. And here you can see the.
Okay, and just the very gist of the entire video. So he has got the scraped data in return after using this web scraper Chrome extension. So just kind of feel free to check this kind of videos. I'll leave the link in the description below this one. So it also has some extensions like how to scrape infinite scroll pages, or how to handle pagination, and they even single page record extraction. So it's really kind of some interesting materials here. So this is the very first part that I've been talking about, is actually when you don't need any coding skills at all. So you can obtain this kind of sort of a data set in the CSV format. Well, obviously then you can just convert it if needed, but that's literally enough to get that in the CSV format, and you can simply sell this CSV file to somebody on Fiverr who needs this sort of a data, and you're done basically, and you're already kind of you're already kind of making money using this sort of a thing. So again, like I'm not covering this in my own tutorials. I did this once, and as already mentioned, that was one of the that's the most viewed and the most popular video on this channel so far for some reason. Maybe because it's entitled "How to Make Money on Fiverr," I guess. And I did demonstrate myself how one can make use of this web scraper Chrome extension, but again, it's better just to watch these tutorials, so eventually you will see your own selves. So it's absolutely enough information here to learn how to use this extension, and without any coding skills you can go through this. And just before I forgot, the other question asked by Jabarani Jim is he says he's got an old PC with 4 gigabytes of random access memory. It's not enough. Is this enough to scrape for clients? It's more than enough. So if you can launch a browser, if you can serve the internet, that's literally enough. So the power needed for web scraping is really miserable, so you don't really need that kind of sort of thing. Well, obviously if you're dealing with the huge data sets and you're storing those huge data sets into the random access memory, or what is known as RAM, so it's just operational memory of the computer. Well, in that case, basically the more memory you have, the better. But still, the 4 gigabytes is really more than enough just to kickstart it. So this was what regards basically. Somebody even called this data mining for some point at some point. So that was the very first part where you can already sell kind of CSV files to your clients without any coding knowledge, basically. But obviously that wouldn't bring that much income compared to if you're creating a web scraping code. And this is the second and kind of much bigger part. Much bigger niche on the market, and that's exactly where I've landed eventually. Even though I've started as a web developer, so I've been working first with Node.js and Express framework and Mongo database as well. Then I switched to Flask and Python Flask and MySQL, or MySQL is the fancy way of calling this database. And all those projects were related with web scraping at some point, but eventually it came up that it's much more profitable for me personally to do the pure web scraping without kind of being bothered by those web interfaces and things like that, because even on this channel my earlier videos are covering lots of web technologies in regards to web scraping, like how to create a user interface for your web scraping, how to run the web scraper from the web application, and so on. But when you got a scraping hub that offers much better functionality in this kind of field, only for $9 per month, it's really better to consider or to kind of advertise this sort of a solution to your clients rather than trying to reinvent the wheel on your own and trying to sell in that sort of stuff full of bugs, and then you're getting tortured by the clients because something stopped working and things like that. So so what I want to say is that eventually I've moved to the pure web scraping. And in regards to pure web scraping, what I can say, again, even though you're selling code, but how much you will get paid for your code, it all depends on what kind of data you scrape. So and here I'd like to distinguish some key parts because it's a person considered to be very important. So one of the biggest and one of the most paid niches is when you're scraping data for machine learning purposes. Machine learning, when you're processing a huge amounts of data and either trying to predict some values or doing some classification jobs, that's probably the most highly paid jobs in the world ever. So the statistics, at least to what I know, what I've seen, what I've researched, is so the most paid jobs are for data scientists who does some machine learning. So it's even more than the web developers, because the intention of this data science machine learning projects is to increase the income of the companies that offering this kind of projects significantly. So the companies will pay really lots of money to get the pledge growth in return, and the more the pledge growth, the more they're ready to pay for those projects. So they're paying for something, so they are not even paying, they kind of invest in their money in their own economical development. And just in comparison with the web development, it's more like just for advertising purposes. So it doesn't, well, it does probably does bring some clients, it does give you some, I don't know, some benefits, but still, if you're running a website, you need to pay for the hosting, for support team of developers, you need tons of money to actually to create the initial product, to run and debug that, and so on. So you had to pay for the domain name, and if your project is using some additional service like some web scraping as an example, then you need to pay for additional things, and so on and so on. So web development is more like one client is spending money without really getting much income in return. Maybe he's just advertising himself or things like that, but it's not about getting income. While machine learning purposes intended to increase the income of the company significantly are really paid much more, because I've just explained why. So the most profitable data to scrape as the Python developer specializing in web scraping is some sort of a data that is later used in order to build some machine learning models that would be processing this data and extracting some insights out of that data. So that's actually what I'm doing in my daily jobs. And what's the most benefit here? That first of all is the most paid part in the web scraping niche, and on the other hand, it's the most independent part as well, because the next niche regarding web scraping is when a company is just scraping huge data sets, but just more like for the statistics. Well, by saying statistics, I mean like they just need to monitor the market, the situation, and so on, but they're not really making that much money of that data itself. It's more like for just to be aware of what's going on out there. So and in that case, it's usually a big companies, and you're not the only developer, you're in a team, and that's weird for me personally. I hate working in a team. I really just actually can't do that. It's when it's not about to deliver the working code, but you need to do this in regards to the guidelines they're providing you and things like that. So they're limiting your freedom, and it's just enslaving you so much. Again, like, remember the business bullshit by Dr. Pi, and that's kind of what I'm talking about. So what else? And also what the bad thing, that if that is a company, usually I just said that, but let me just say this one more time, basically. So it's not enough to just provide them a working code. So they might want you to deploy it, say, on Scraping Hub again, and so too many. They have too many requisites that goes beyond the web scraping itself, and it's really torturing, at least for me personally. So I don't really like that. And the very last and the least paid niche in the web scraping is, well, I would call this like private personal clients, where so let's say there is a guy who wants to scrape like list of, I don't know, guitars or something. He just want to buy a guitar for his own self, and he just wants to list of those, and say if he has a small business when say he's buying those guitars and selling them back, so he just needs to run this scraper from time to time to update his data set. Well, in this case he would also pay, but in this case it doesn't really much different from what I've been talking regarding the web development, because he's not making money on this data set. He's just using this for his own self and considers this to be like just spending his money, and that is something that doesn't really help him to get some money back in return. So that means that he won't be capable of paying that much compared to the companies, and just compared to those guys who using this data for machine learning purposes. And even though, and just by the way, regarding the machine learning purposes, it's kind of the golden field, because in machine learning it's well, my current experience tells me that the best ever approach, well, at least for me personally, is to work in pairs. So I have my current client. He's a developer himself, and he works he works as a data scientist at a startup, at a big Switzerland-based startup, a England-based startup, and I'm scraping the real estate properties for him from different countries, and it's really nice to work in pair, because you're working with the only person, and he has a crystal clear requisites regarding your code. So regarding the data set, well, he doesn't really even care about your code, just he needs your code to work, and that's kind of it. And as far as the data itself is more than valuable for him, so the price, the income I'm getting in return is significantly bigger compared to what I had when I was working for companies, or I'm not even comparing this with working on private clients, like who using the web scraping for their own needs. So I hope the market situation, well, at least by my eyes, is quite a bit clearer at this moment. And now at the very end, I would like to talk a little bit about the skills. And actually I already have a video, which is the trailer video on my channel currently. So overview of scraping frameworks and jobs. And I don't really want to say the same I've already said there, but just briefly, there are two major. So if we're talking about web scraping, I guess, I don't know, like maybe the 90% of the jobs are all using Python. So Python is Python dominates in the web scraping field, basically. And in Python you have two major, well, I would say not even two, maybe like three major opportunities. No, like one major opportunity and two small opportunities. So the major opportunity is Scrapy framework, obviously, while the two little opportunities are Request and Beautiful Soup and the Selenium framework. Actually, Selenium is a web automation framework, which initially is intended for testing websites in terms of testing user interfaces, to make sure that, like, when you click the button, the appropriate behavior comes in return and nothing crashes. So just to avoid user clicking the damn button for thousands of times. So, but also, as far as Selenium is written on Python, and also it uses the headless browser, or it can use the Chrome driver as well. So, well, I'm not tracking the current development state of Selenium. I never used this in my career, to be honest, as well. But what it does allow you to do, it's something really similar to what this web scraper Chrome extension does, but with the only difference that here you're doing this kind of by clicking your mouse on the screen, visually selecting the elements you want to scrape, while in case of Selenium, actually, this process is automated, but visually it's kind of the same in terms of that when you run your Selenium scraper, it invokes the browser usually, and this pop-up window appears as well, and then you can just automate the scroll down event, so you don't need to fetch the data from the API like we're doing with we're implementing the scraper in bare Python. So some guys like that, but again, it's more like for this small private clients that need to scrape something. Well, also it's good when you need to scrape something where it's incredibly hard to mimic the API calls when they use some sort of a security tokens to as some sort of an anti-scraping measures. So that's kind of it regarding the Selenium. And Request and Beautiful Soup, I got really numerous tutorials. I have a big playlist on this channel regarding Request and Beautiful Soup, and as I already said, it's good to create so-called one-time scrapers when client doesn't really need to run that scraper many times. It's more like he just needs to grab the data once, and that's kind of it. But this is almost the same like if you're selling the data set, because from the client's perspective it's literally the same. Like if he just runs the scraper once and gets the data set, or he just pays you for the data set for the CSV file that you deliver him, and that's kind of it. So not a big deal. And obviously you don't always have to provide the data sets using the web scraper Chrome extension. Obviously you can write a small scraper using Request and Beautiful Soup quite pretty quickly if there is not that much of data to be extracted, and if the crawling logic is pretty simple. Say you just need to scrape the data from single pagination, and that's kind of it. If you don't need to crawl the entire site, if you don't need to crawl recursively some links, in that case, so like simple scraping jobs, Request and Beautiful Soup fits perfectly well, basically. And the most complicated, the most massive from the data perspective, so the most massive scrapings from the data size perspective is obviously all about the scraping framework. So if you have a complicated site crawling logic when you need to crawl through, well, say like if we say about the real estate properties sites that I'm currently scraping, like they're all literally the same. So first you need to obtain the list of postal codes for a particular country, and then optionally you need to process that postal codes to obtain some site-specific encodings for the location identifiers and parent area identifiers if needed, and then you just generating the links to crawl through all of the postal codes areas on that particular site, and every area has many pages, so it's kind of the pagination crawling is the second level. So first, say you crawl over one postcode, then one postcode has say 50 pages. You need to crawl through all the 50 pages, and on every page you need to extract the link for a property card listing, and then you need to crawl through every property card listing to fetch a huge amount of data, of information from every single property listed. So this sort of task I've described now is just is actually exactly the same I'm currently working on for the last 2 months basically. So this is where scraping is really becomes handy and useful, and I could have ever imagined if I've been doing this using say Request or Beautiful Soup, so that would end up with as a completed disaster basically. So this is kind of it, and well, I guess this is it in terms of the initial topic of this video. So like selling data versus selling scrapers. Well, I hope I did explain this, so now it starts getting a little bit more clear for you guys. And regarding the email I got, I will now obviously write the personalized response just to help the particular man how exactly to proceed basically, because like all this general kind of mentorings, they don't really mean much, because every single case for every single person is different, and it all depends on your current skill set, on your abilities to interact with other people, with the clients, potential clients, like how your consciousness works. So what do you prefer? So what is acceptable? What is not non-acceptable for you, and things like that. So in order to help a particular person to land a particular job in the particular niche, I'm talking about web scraping or selling the data at this moment, it really needs a personal approach. So that's why now I'll just end the recording of this video and actually start writing the email to Jabberani J. So this is it, guys, for this video. Hope you've enjoyed it and learned something interesting out of it. So new web scraping tutorials are coming soon on this channel. Also I have some interesting requests from some Indian girl that she has written a really nice Twitter scraper, and she asked me to help regarding that. So maybe that will come soon as well. Well, until then, until those videos, so until next time, and take care.